So the clamp is a position that essentially gives me maximal control over my training partner's upper body. So when we think about what attacks are available, okay, just as far as a foundation, the obvious one is a triangle, right? And we kind of demonstrated the fact that that's available, right, in the previous clip. There's a very basic dilemma, right? This is, I would refer to this as like the foundational dilemma in the clamp position, which is the dilemma between a triangle and the omoplata, right? Those are going to be kind of your fundamental attacks that in reality, regardless of your skill level, whether you're just starting off or whether you're an expert, those are going to be the ones that are the most readily available and the ones that are most likely to succeed in the clamp position. Now, there's obviously other attacks that stem off of that position and other attacks that can be fed off of triangles and omoplatas. But as far as the foundation goes, triangle and omoplata is going to be your basic fundamental dilemma from that clamp position. So the question becomes, when do we go into triangle and when do we go into omoplata, right? So before we go into the actual mechanical elements and like different situations where, we might have to react differently to set up the triangle and the omoplata, the basic idea is that, again, we understand that when I get into this position, my training partner as the defensive person is looking to, in general, escape this position by either coming towards me, gaining height, and then breaking my contact, or moving away from me, and then from there slipping, his arm out. And that's my general cue, right? Because I have so much control here and so much limb extension, it's pretty easy for me to read what direction my training partner is going. And as he goes into any one of those directions of escape, it's going to be relatively easy for me to feed into one of those two fundamental attacks, right? So as a general rule, when your partner is coming towards you, triangle becomes the primary attack, right? That's the one that I'm typically going to look to go for. And again, as a general rule, when your partner's head is moving away from you, omoplata is going to be the attack that I look to go in, and get to. We'll talk about how we can finish those, here in a little bit, but it's just important to understand that. So it seems kind of obvious, right? Triangle is a really obvious attack here for the very reason that I've basically isolated my training partner's one arm and his head, and I'm not completely over the forearm, and there's definitely things he can do to stifle my ability to go into a triangle, and we'll touch on kind of the main things that he might do, but they're predictable, right? So I could still very, very efficiently and reliably go into triangles, even with his primary defenses. So the basic cue is going to be head coming towards or head moving away. And then how I react to the variety of different defenses that he's going to give me is something that we'll touch on a little bit later. So there are definitely things that I can do to try to maintain my training partner's head close to me. There are definitely things that I can do to force my training partner's head away from me. But a lot of times your training partner is actually going to just initiate one of those things. So when we get into this position here, it's rare that your partner is just going to stay here and accept this position. So all we have to think about doing is, as I feel that head's moving away from me, for example, it's hard for me to hold it, omoplata is going to be our primary option. And then from there, we're going to start feeding into different omoplata options. The head's moving towards me, I can't stop it from moving towards me. Triangle becomes our primary option, So that's the basic dilemma there. And in reality, those are going to be your most reliable options. And then it's all situation dependent, right? Either how I choose to deal with not just the direction that he's looking to defend, the direction that he's moving to defend, but the actual specific things that he does with his hands or with his legs or with his head that are going to allow me to feed into those positions, or the auxiliary attacks that can present themselves depending upon how he chooses to defend, which we'll look at later. But the fundamental dilemma is triangle omoplata, head moving towards, triangle, head moving away, omoplata, and then everything else is going to be essentially a byproduct of that. Those are going to be your kind of most efficient, most reliable entries. And then, we can choose to go about attacking in different ways depending on how my training partner moves in those two directions.